Hi, my name is Rachel McLeod, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And today I want to talk to you about how to overcome anxiety from the perspective. Let me try that again. Okay, I want to talk with you. What I'm going to talk with you about today is putting this generalized anxiety disorder into your past for good. Overcoming this disorder is like incredibly life changing, and it's possible. And we can take this thing apart and put it back together in your brain in a way that really creates healthy brain function and helps you more easily live your best life, because as long as you have this generalized anxiety disorder, some of your energy is going into it, whether it's going into your symptoms or it's going into working through your systems and getting yourself back to a place where you can function, or it's recovering from the symptoms, um, or avoiding them altogether, which really can create more disorders. And so the sooner we get through this, the better. um, And so that's what we're going to talk about. And so, if you have been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, this is for you. If you suspect you have it, this is for you. And if you have a loved one who has this, this is for you. Because the more you understand this disorder, the more you can see. Where you want to be in this, how you can help them, and how you can not get sucked into it as well. So, because this is a anyway, the more you don't get sucked into this, the healthier your relationships can be. And that goes for if you are the person with the disorder or you are loving somebody with this disorder. It's important for both parties not to get sucked into this. And if it's not even sucking, then it can't pull anybody in anyway. And that's really where I like to get people to, because then um, they don't have to worry about, is it coming for me, or is that it over there, and if I do that, am I going to fall into it, because that's still taking brain space up, where away from you reaching your goals, and loving the people that you want to be loving, like your children or your relationships or your passion. Any time that you're spending thinking about this thing is not, I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to put your time and energy and your mental work on what's going to create the life of your dreams. Because the more people that are doing that, living that life of their dreams, the more inspiration there is for everybody else, and it's just up, right? And this is something that we can fix from the inside. Okay, so having said that, let's talk about what generalized anxiety disorder is. And I may be referring to this in the future as GAD, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. We'll see how that goes. And so I was looking at a definition. So I found Mayo Clinics, and I thought it was very simple. It was excessive ongoing anxiety and worry that are difficult to control and interfere with day-to-day activities in your life. And this could be interactions with family members. It make it difficult for you to sleep, make it difficult for you to take care of yourself, function at work, those sorts of things. And you will notice specific symptoms of this if you find that you are overthinking plans and solutions to possible worst case scenarios. I can't tell you how much time when I had my disorder that I spent right there. And overthinking plans for worst case scenarios. And if you have that going on, that sucks. And let's keep going so we can get to the solution here. So, a difficulty handling uncertainty, um, leading to panicking while there's uncertainty, or being defensive, aggressive, passive, manipulative, all those things that we do that we don't want to be doing. But we do them because we're not handling uncertainty well. Indecisiveness, or fear of making the wrong decision, inability to resolve conditions. I don't know why I wrote that down, and it doesn't look quite right. And if Mayo Clinic is like, you're misquoting me. Anyway, but just, I have it over here so I can quote them properly. Oh, yeah, letting go of a worry, or setting aside worry, and not able to do that, right? That you try to put it down and the worry keeps chasing you and it keeps bothering you. Difficulty concentrating, your mind's racing, you can't catch a thought, or your mind going blank altogether. And so those are some of these symptoms. And I used Mayo Clinics on this because I don't conceptualize it like this, but this is exactly how it comes. And typically people, when they're talking to me about this, this is what I'm hearing from them. These are the words, but I really don't hang on to that because I have a way of looking at this that is different. And so that's kind of how I've got it categorized. So, but I think this is really a helpful guide. And I want to tell you, having taken apart this disorder repeatedly for multiple clients and myself in some ways, even though this was not my primary diagnosis, I have found that generalized anxiety disorder is made up of these four things. Okay, and this is how I start. This is how I conceptualize it, and then I'm going to tell you how I help people resolve this. It's made up of traumas or painful experiences in the past that haven't been able to make it through the brain's healing pathway or the brain's healing process. And so because it's stuck in some state of limbo where maybe it's come through partially, it's been resolved partially, or it's been resolved, or maybe it hasn't been able to come through at all, it creates symptoms. And then those symptoms, you have to then form strategies around those symptoms, and then you've got something that's growing, right? And then you've got a whole disorder in there. And so at the root of some of the disorder are these traumatic experiences or painful experiences. Um, Another thing that makes up this disorder for me is what I found is somatic distress. Your body is distressed. It is expressing the disorder in there. And this could be symptoms of your heart racing, headaches, nausea, bowel problems, diarrhea, constipation, stomach aches, um, having your legs feel heavy or feeling like they're frozen and can't move forward, arms tingling, anything in your body, headaches, head pain, tension in your shoulders. This is part of this disorder. Um, Also, we have the cognitive level of this, which is the thoughts. That there are specific thought distortions that people will have. There's like 15 common ones. It's really cool to look at those because you get to see what they are. They're everywhere, they're rampant. The more of these you have, the more symptoms of depression, anxiety, and I mean, all the symptoms that you will have. But knowing them is not really enough. You have to resolve them. And so we want to, I'm looking at this like this because I collect all this data from everybody because this is how I put together their customized plan. Um, and so we have cognitive stuff, and then we have survival level stuff. Which would be your defenses against distress. That's your brain's job, is to keep you from being distressed. It actually creates more stress for you, so it's like it's totally frustrating. But its job, that survival center's job, is to keep you alive. And distress, not stress, but that distress feeling is a sign of we're under threat. Everybody, we're going into survival mode. Move back, I got this. And your survival system then takes over how you're interacting with whatever it is. And that's not fun because that part of the brain does not know how to fix things or solve problems. That part of the brain doesn't know how to make you thrive, help you reach your dreams and your goals. That part only knows how to survive. And so you don't, when you're operating back there from that part of the brain, no good. We're not really making progress forward. We're treading water. And so the more your time you're spending back there, the more you're not being able to reach your dreams and your goals, and have the create the state of thriving you want to thrive with. So some of our goal, this is our goal, is to get you from whatever's taking you back to your survival system. We want to resolve that. We want you to be able to live from this part of your brain and have their whole body helping out for all the things, instead of going back here and hanging out there and operating from that part of the brain. No good. Um, so that survival level stuff is resistance, dissociation, things like irritability, the fight, flight, freeze, and faint modes, any defensiveness you have. If you're deflecting, if you're intellectualizing, this is the survival level components that are holding your disorder together. And so these are the things I'm looking for when I'm talking with people and what I'm always assessing for. And this is actually what I teach people to assess for as well, because you can start recognizing them in yourself and watch these patterns. And if we're going to keep you in maintenance and free from this, you're going to need to be really good at that. And this process leads you to be really good at that, which is why I love it so much. Because not only do we resolve each one of these issues, but we also, um, in resolving them, the work you have to do to overcome this helps you stand powerfully as a person who can help you and be a hero that you can rely on. And that is, worth its weight in gold. Um, so now here you see that we've got all this data we're looking for. Okay. And this is how I then start going after it. And this is my process for really resolving these issues. I am first gonna I'm working with, let me tell you. Okay, I'll tell you this first. Um, I am first taking care of your survival system. That's my first. I am paying attention to. I am teaching my clients to pay attention to prioritize their survival system. Period. If that part of your brain is not happy, nothing's going to be happy. We are not going anywhere. Nothing's happening here. Because that's the part of the brain that will put the kibosh on all healing. It's the one that if there's internal conflict that can't be resolved after a while, instead of that pattern continuing, it comes out with its hammer and says, everybody back to your places. I got this. Stand back. And that happens over and over and over again. And so these conflicts don't get resolved. And whatever's needed to resolve the issue never gets resolved. And so everyone's always going back and never being able to resolve an issue. And so the issues just start accumulating. And then you need processes for your issues, and then it grows. So the very first thing I do with people is we are working on their survival system and learning about it, picking it up. Sometimes we're triggering it, but very gently. And because we need to know if we can help it. And plus, anything we think about that falls into distress is going to activate it. And we're going to get to play around with that part of your brain and find how to help it. And um, that's where I'm really teaching people and customizing and finding the right match to which interventions work best for them. And I'm teaching them how to do that. And I'm also, we're working on that together, so that they can take care of this at home. And I want them to practice working with their survival system, which if they're doing effective work with their survival system, they're already going to start healing at home, and they're going to start noticing it, and they're going to start feeling it, and they're going to start transforming. And then they're going to get more excited because they're like, what else can we use this for? And that's exactly where I want them to be for the next step. But and the interventions that I teach people to use are emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, energy medicine, and EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And I'm looking to match these with people. By the time people are done working with me, typically they will be good at all four. Some people there's some of these interventions they just are never interested in. They don't want to try. And they don't care because they're like, woohoo, I'm already doing what I need to do. So I'm fine with that. For me, this is really about symptom elimination and giving you what you need to really resolve these things. So that is the first thing that we're doing. And if you watch the video I did yesterday, I talked about where I start and with all things. And I start with stressors. I have people look at what's going on right now. And we will pick one of those things and we will start unraveling it and getting to the root of it. But as we start working with it, what I'm teaching them to do is work with their survival system. And I will make sure that they can see their survival system responding. They feel what that feels like. And I'm pointing that out all the time. I'm asking questions about it. I'm asking questions to bring their attention to this. And so that they start to watch it. Because if they can find their survival system not misbehaving, but interacting here, and they can feel what that feels like, they will be able to recognize it the next time and the next time and the next time. They will be able to get really good at watching their survival system. And so this is the important first step that we do, and why I use stressors to do that, current stressors. And this is a much different starting point than where you start with cognitive behavioral therapy or traditional talk therapies, because they're going straight after thoughts. And I find that if you don't work with the survival system, because it doesn't care what you're thinking. It doesn't care what you know. It doesn't care what you, go ahead, talk about it. I don't care. No problem. I'm going to be over here making sure that that we stay out of distress. And yeah, I know you don't think it's distress, but I do. So whatever, whatevs, right? And so you got this part that's just independently, not coming along to the healing party and interrupting the healing party. And so even though you might in talk therapy, you might understand what's going on, you won't have the opportunity to completely resolve the issue. You will have an understanding, you will be aware of it, you will watch your system do it, but you will not be able to interact to actually stop the situation. But conversely, I don't know. I want to use that word. And honestly, I don't know the definition of it. So anyway, we're throwing that out there. Please feel free to word check me. But if we work with the survival system and we get the survival system to allow the healing to take place, then all of a sudden you can work with the thoughts, you can work with the rest of the things, you can work with the body, you can work with all the other levels if you can work with this part of the brain. And all the interventions I use are specifically designed to or have the specific effect of working with the survival system, because that's the gatekeeper, that's the one that says, yeah, you can pass into the healing process, or no, you're not going anywhere. I don't even like what you're doing up in here. Go back. And so we want to become really, really good friends with your survival system, because its decisions and its responses will have the biggest effect on whether you will overcome this disorder or not. Okay, so that's why I'm starting there, because no matter what we do from here, if your survival system is not happy, we're going to stop and make sure it gets happy. Period. And we're not going to go anywhere else until your survival system says, okay, we can do that. And so this is the first level of things. And as a matter of fact, what's so great about this is that once people start working with this part of the brain, they can pull in accidentally, with very little skill, lots of resolution and lots of healing just by doing this one thing. And so not only do they get all the low-hanging fruit. It's like anything that can resolve simply will resolve simply. And then they're all excited because they feel better, right? I had one client who started work with me because she every morning she would wake up and she would just be hammered with anxiety and depression, and she would just stay there and all day long. And she's just like, I'm stuck. I don't even know. This doesn't make logical sense to me, but I am totally stuck. And what we did in our first session was we looked at what was going on there, because that's the stressor, right? And then we started working with her survival system. And we started there. The next time we met 3 days later, she was like, I baked cookies. I didn't fall into that at all. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, those baking cookies, to anybody else. But let me tell you what, it's huge. And she didn't have that problem again. And so it was very simple to resolve that. I never know what's going to be simply resolved or what isn't. I'm totally looking for feedback from my clients, because they're the ones who are going to know if it resolved or not. And I'm going to find out by asking some questions about it. But if she can wake up in the morning and that explosion of anxiety and depression doesn't happen, we got it. And so great. If we didn't, we would have come back to it and found what's next. But that's really why I have people start at the survival system level first, and really learn how to use the tools, the interventions and strategies to work with this part of the brain. The next thing my next priority is the somatic level, your body. It doesn't matter how much you know about what's right or wrong. If you're every time, like what's to be worried about, what's safe and what's not, the things you're worrying about, if you know that you shouldn't worry about it, but your stomach is aching and nauseous and whatever about it, you're not going anywhere. And you're going to have to drag that stomach situation with you for a long time. And it's going to worry you, because it's the body's expression of worry. And so when you only address worry with the thinking center, I think you've got this on backwards, and you're wasting energy, because if you can take care of the stomach issue, a lot of times the head issue, the thought issues, will resolve itself. That's what I found. And so that's why this is my second piece, is that I want to know what your body has to say about this. I'm going to hear you, what your words have to say, but the next thing, I want to know what your body has to say. Where is this happening in your body? And we're going there. and we're going to find out all the information. There are lots of questions we can ask to get. The body will tell you anything and everything you need to know. You can get any kind of information once you know how to find how to work with this. And this is pretty easy for me to train people how to do for themselves. And it's the second thing I do. Um, so when we're working with that body symptom and we're using interventions with it, our goal is to get that stomach ache to release entirely. Sometimes people will have enough skill for that it'll go. Sometimes it'll just come down by half. And I know we're on our way, but I know if it's only coming down by half, there's still more going on there. We need to get some more information. And so that's really what we're doing in the body. And so when we're talking about issues, I'm going to want to know how your survival system's responding. I want to know how your body is responding. And then we will go through the stressors in your life and resolve them from the body level. Um, I teach it pretty slow in the beginning, and then we start stacking them, doing them all together, right? And so you really can do them all together quickly, and really learn how to pick apart each aspect of the subconscious, or the traumatic, the painful, the events, the distress, the thoughts, and then the survival stuff. You can learn how to work on all of that stuff at the same time. But I find that as I'm teaching this, I give people one skill at a time. And so because I want the result of, we resolve the symptoms, we clear those out, and then I also have them fully trained on how to resolve this in the future. And so that's how I'm doing this, because I used to do this, just you come to my office, I resolve your issue, you go out and live your life, you come back, find another issue, I help you resolve that, and you go out. And those clients needed more support at the end because they didn't know how to do this stuff. And I realized, oh, I didn't teach them. I thought I taught them, but I didn't teach them. And so that became part of what I was doing, so that they would never have to rely on a therapist again. They could, if they wanted to they could partner with a therapist, but they would be partnering and not being dependent, which was important to me. So that's really how I teach this stuff. But really, it's when I'm doing this, I'm doing it all at once. Anyway, and you really can get there too. The third thing that's important in this, is we're going to go after the painful events that did not get processed properly. We can find them by using the body. The body can take us right to past events. Okay, great. I see your question there, Khalid, and I will answer it. I'm going to keep flowing here a second. The past events are where this problem originated. And so it's one of the simplest places to work on this, because it doesn't have the whole chunk around it of all the defenses that have been needed throughout the years. And usually it's a past event where you didn't have enough support to make it through, whether, parents can't catch everything. And sometimes some parents are just not functioning enough to be able to provide you with the support that you needed for many things. And so as you live your life, you're actually up here gathering all the information you need to really help your younger self right here. And so what's great is when we use these interventions back here, we're moving the emotional, the stuck energy in there, the intensity. We're removing the somatic distress from this event, and we're also working on the beliefs and all the things in there. And what happens when this gets fully resolved is your brain will naturally go into a process of updating the memory, and it'll start saying, oh, we could have done this, we could have done that. If that doesn't happen, we have tools where we can cue your brain to do that process. And I teach those strategies as well, because this really needs to happen in there. And if your brain doesn't do it naturally, we're just going to watch it. If it's not coming on there, okay, let's put it through this exercise. Okay, brain, try that. See what happens. And we're using the interventions to help the whole brain come together to really resolve that issue. Once it's resolved there, this is in your subconscious programming. And so once it's resolved there, it's like you plug it back in like a Lego. Okay, like a Lego, put it back in there, and you run it again and see what happens. And when you get this right in that original event, and resolving all these levels can take anywhere from like 20 minutes. Once you have the event identified, it can take anywhere from 20 minutes to about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how complex it is. And if it's more complex than that, every once in a while, it's like it needs to be worked on over time, which is fine. Sometimes it'll take a week or two. to get through something like that. But for the most part, and I have worked with heinous amounts of horrible trauma, it usually takes about 20 minutes to 50 minutes when you get the event identified properly. So um, let's see. Okay, what's cool about this is that the event will, the new program will start running all the way from this event to everything that it's connected to, all the way to the present, past, into the future. You will begin living with this new program, and that's really cool. And that's how the body does things anyway. When we're working in the present and we're working on that somatic distress, once we get that cleared from there, usually it will clear forward. If it's not the root of it, it will come back, and we will actually use that thing as a indicator that there's more work to do on it, and it will then will take us to the original memory, and then we'll get there. So there's a lot we can do at this level, but these things, there will be some things moving forward that with this one thing resolved, it has begun to unwound everything moving forward that was associated with it. It will resolve some things, and some things it will just take out the thread. Like if it's a whole ball of gunk, you can take that one thread out, and now there's less things holding it together. And the next thing you know, you're working on another event for something else, and you come back to this one, and there's another thread pulled out. And so it's like really loose. And maybe that's the time we want to jump on that and make sure it untangles and gets all the way through. So we really have options when we're working with past events, and past traumas. And traumas can be anything that many people dismiss their experiences as not being traumatic because it wasn't a war scene, or like horrible, awful things like abuse or neglect. Sometimes a trauma is really small, like someone. Um, I had a client who was in a earlier elementary school, and she reached up for something, and her friend saw her belly. Trauma, right? And she's been working with that since, until we resolved the trauma, and now she's not so body conscious. So even little things like that can really put a huge wrench in things. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna tell a story. So I had this one client who had generalized anxiety disorder and social anxiety disorder, and um, she did not have a traumatic history at all. Like, I looked through that thing, I was like, what the heck? And then I thought, well, okay, fine, let's just, this might be my one client that doesn't have any trauma, and that their anxiety disorder and social anxiety is not in this at all. So this kicked my butt for a long time on my end. I worked with her for 2 years, which is a really, really long time for me to take to resolve a disorder. But at the time, it was early. I really wasn't giving her tons of homework, the proper homework. And it was just, we were doing this in sessions. But even then, it was still a long time. And we just kept going around her life at different stressors and untangling those, and she was getting really great results. Her life was improving, but there were some things that would not budge. And so we're going around, going around, going around, and I'm just keeping going because she's getting results. Okay, trust the process. And finally, we found one incident that was a traumatic event, and it was responsible for all of her phobias, and many of her and so many of her irrational beliefs that were stopping her from things like going to the grocery store. And it happened to be one incident, and we resolved that, and then our work was done. So I have never experienced a generalized anxiety disorder where there has never been trauma, in like even in clients who have had a fantastic, amazing upbringing. And it hurts, yeah. So I find that there is always a trauma involved, whether it's a big one or a little one, whatever. And then the very last thing that I will address, because we're going to go through all of these things and clean all this up, is the cognitive level, the thinking level. I am so not concerned about this. This is, I do not like to play in the playground of the conscious mind, because I find it does not have problems. It's phenomenal. It's awesome. This part of your brain needs very little support. And so when I'm doing this stuff, I really stay in these three levels until we're at the end, where everything is mostly functioning, where we can't find any more somatic distress. We're not finding traumas that need to be worked on. We're not finding survival reactions that are over exaggerated or inappropriate, or that's just smell like it could be trauma, And so um, I'm not doing that. And also, I'm watching your conscious mind the whole time, seeing it, and I'm teaching you to do this too, to see how it's handling things. And every time I'm like, yeah, good job, high five, conscious mind, do it. This part of the brain is fabulous, and so I don't really spend time there. At the end, that is when I will go after any loose ends that your conscious mind is running into. And I have strategies for this and that I teach people. And when we find thoughts like cognitive distortions, which are awesome, so great that there's a list because you can easily grab one of those. By this time, we need to run these thoughts back through the other parts of the brain. So we need to run this part through the survival system. We need to run it through your body. We need to see what's going on with your body. Why are you having all these thoughts? Right? This is not the right thought. What's going on with it? And your survival system and your subconscious mind. We need to run it through all parts of those, gather up all the information and pull that through the healing pathways. And then we will loosen that pattern of not inappropriate, of a cognitive distortion, a thought that's kind of true, but it's not. And it's taking you down the wrong hole into the hole of anxiety. And and we want to like sew those holes clear, like together so that in your brain, you can run over them and not fall in. Um, anyway, thoughts from Rachel. Let me see. Okay. And then we are going to go to, we are going to, and then okay, so that's my process for doing this. And by this point now we're moving into maintenance mode, and this is where you just use your tools to work with now you know how your subconscious mind communicates with you. You know how you're in tune, you're reconnected with your survival system, and you're tuning in with your body, and your body is sending you messages. All parts of your brain are always sending you messages all the time, and right now they're in the form of symptoms. And so nobody wants to have those kind of communications, but that you have to engage right there. But after a while, your body starts saying, hey, you know what? She listens to us, so we'll tell her this nicely. So we don't have to all gang up on her and tackle her down because she's ignoring us. Like, we will just tell her nicely. And that is so we want you to be in tune with what's going on in your body. We want you to be in tune with all parts of you so that it's like internal leadership, right? When you resolve this thing, you need to take the reins of your internal leadership, right? And that's why I teach people it how I do, because I know that that's the end result. Because if you stop taking care of yourself, and you stop not listening to your body, and you stop, then they're going to have to get loud and angry and find ways and get creative about how to get you to listen to them. And so that's really that's the process. And so by the time we're at that end process, all that stuff is kind of weaving in together, and 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 we find no more symptoms, and we find your stressors are resolved, and then the stressors that you have in your life are usually ones that are simplified, because you're not bringing all the baggage into it, and there's not all these memories and all these thoughts and all these beliefs coming in and throwing themselves at your problem, which is, that's that whole, your brain is like, I'm going to use this opportunity to remind her of all those past memories because we got to get this crap out of here. And she's not listening. So go. And so now it's not just a stressor. Now it's a stressor and all your baggage coming at it. And it's a big fat explosion. So when that stuff stops, now it's just these things, and your job is just to resolve those. So, and stay in touch with that. Okay. So, quite a bit. Okay. So, I'm going to answer these questions because I think that they are very, very awesome. Um, so, and apply specifically to overcoming generalized anxiety disorder. So, mindfulness meditation. This is a phenomenal practice. Um, I think this is fantastic, and I would not rely on it entirely to resolve generalized anxiety disorder, and here's why. And hear me say, practice that, do it a lot. Hear me say that, because that's what I'm saying. And there's some other pieces that come into this that you really want to cover so that you can really resolve the whole thing. And some of these things, when you learn how to look at this from different levels, you can see how how the mindfulness meditation is, or any practice is affecting the four levels. How it's affecting your thoughts, and it will. How is it affecting your survival system? And it will. How is it affecting your body? And it will. How is it affecting, I'm missing one, past experiences? And it will. But what I find with mindfulness meditation is what happens is you go into a relaxed state, which is awesome because in that relaxed state, your survival system is not activated. And that means healing can happen. So it's very clever in the fact that it works around your survival system. However, if you can't get down there, your survival system says that's not safe. We're not going into mindfulness. And then you're blocked out of mindful meditation. That's where you need to take using tools to help you work with that survival system with what your survival reaction will really help you get in there and get down there. So if you can get to that relaxed state, you're in a place where many things can take place. And you can see when you're in there, let me think. You're also when you're doing this practice, you're also practicing observing, which is the ability to observe thoughts and feelings and not just live into them is instrumental to healing, because the ability, once you start observing, you are putting your brain in a state of healing, where healing can happen. I mean, you're on the launch pad. You have put your brain on the launch pad for healing. Anytime that you can kind of, like, if you're having this experience and it feels all like this, and all of a sudden you can pull yourself out and you can see yourself doing the experience, but you're over here, you got one foot in and one foot out, and this is the healing stance. And that is one of the benefits of using mindfulness, is that you develop that skill. I like to develop the skill a little differently, but I don't care how the skill is built. But you have to build it. And so mindful meditation is really great for that because you practice that. But if you can't do it, there's a reason you can't do it. It's not just because you're to this, you're to that, you're to this, you're to that. It's your brain says no. And you can work on it. Well, hey, brain, why? Why no? And your brain and body will tell you why. And if you're using another intervention like emotional freedom techniques or thought-filled therapy or EMDR or whatever, you can begin to get your brain to reorganize that reason and to pull more of it in and say, okay, I see this reason, but could we make it safe? And it's like, yeah, I'd like to, but what about this? And that is something you got to resolve, because your brain is starting to tell you what it needs to release and resolve in order to help you get what you want, which in this case is mindfulness meditation. So at any part of that mindfulness stuff that you run into, no, there's something you can do about that. So you can actually use a mindfulness meditation process to resolve everything you can resolve there, to get and all of that will help your whole brain function really well. If you happen to, and every once in a while this will happen too, people will get into a state where everything can flow. And so if you accidentally, like for instance, for me, I was in some really intense obsessive compulsive episodes when I was in my 20s. And I accidentally cried my way through those events. I didn't mean to. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that crying was a proper intervention. I spent weeks crying, 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 crying. And the next thing I know, I was so much better. And so many things was resolved, and I was able to elevate my function. There can be times where you can fall into a practice like this, which is an intervention, and you can just start resolving so many things. And so that's great. But I do find, and I've had many blocks to mindful meditation. And my one time right now is creating time for that. But my times before, it was, I just could not focus. I could not sit still. I had tons of resistance, all these things. But I wanted to say something about that and I lost it. I don't know. It might come back to me. So so you can try these things and see how far they take you. And then yeah, and since my expertise is not using that specific intervention to resolve a whole disorder, I can't, that's as far as I can take you. Try it out, see how it goes. And that's really what we are doing. And I'm working with people's brains, I'm matching, try this out, try this out. I'm targeting things very specifically, like somatic distress, something that's very tangible and very concrete, and you can feel into it and you know exactly what's going on there. And we try interventions and see how that resolves that. And if it doesn't, we move on to the next one and the next one, till that issue, like if it's a knot in your stomach, totally resolves. And once there, we know that that intervention is a good match for you. So you can really approach a mindfulness meditation the same way. And throughout your healing journey, like right now, I'm in a much better place to do mindfulness meditation than I was when I had my anxiety disorder. And so right now I would go in there and see how I do, right? And if I'm having a great time, I would rock that, right? Because yes, if I wasn't, I would pull out and work through whatever I found, and then try it again. Um, Especially because it does sound like something that is totally awesome. Okay, Malia says, how do you figure out a traumatic event? Many times you can use your conscious mind to do that, and it's just like, okay, what events could I have totally like lived without? Like if that hadn't happened, I would be like so awesome right now. And your brain will say, oh, that time, that time, that time, and that time. Oh my gosh, and let me tell you, this one, this one, this one. You can write all that stuff down. And that's stuff that's in your conscious awareness. And so those are easy ways to do that. And working through those events using these interventions will really increase your health and wellness. You can get a ton out of there. Plus, a lot of times when you are working on an event, your brain will start flashing in all these other images of events that are connected to it, either earlier or later. And if that's terribly painful, you need to make sure you don't do that, or that you have strategies to deal with that, because that can really knock people out. So be cautious as you're doing that. But if it does feel okay, you can write them down, and now you have a new list of things to work through. It's okay to have a list of 100 things on your page, because you're not going to likely have to do 100 of them. You're going to need to do some key ones that will unravel the whole thing. So, and your body can tell you, and your mind and all parts of you will tell you everything you need to know. And so that's one of the ways. Also, you can, like I said, you can access it by finding a situation in your body. And there's a bridge between your body and memories. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And the idea there is that memories, your body stores memories as well. I don't know if that's exactly accurate. And he doesn't even make that connection right there. But I do think that the body is directly connected to all of your memories, and you can access those memories through your body. And so when you know how to do that, which is something that I teach people to do, you can pull up exactly the memory you need to work on, if there's one that's ready to come out, that your system says, yeah, here, have that one. Every once in a while, probably like 10% of the time, no memory will come up with that, and that's just a sign it's not for that, and we'll use the information we have now to work through that. Okay, wonderful. Okay. And so that's how I figure out, those are two cheat ways to find out what traumatic events are. But as you start to learn how all four part of your brain works, you will start to notice your brain will deliver you events when it needs to. And this is a function of, this is what happens during flashbacks. Your brain is actually delivering the events it needs to have resolved, and it cannot keep in the back of your mind. And so people experience this as being angry, and they push flashbacks back. But really, your brain is saying, I'm moving this to the front because the back part of your brain cannot resolve your problems, and it cannot resolve memories and things like that. It's not part of that part of the brain's function. But when it identifies something that it needs resolved, it will kick it to the front. And that's what flashbacks are all about. And that's when you need to resolve them. And you may not be able to resolve them straight on, but you can resolve them. That you absolutely can resolve them. You don't have to get into the memory to resolve them. As a matter of fact, I work to keep people out of the memory. And the only way I'm going into the memory is if that person is pulling me into the memory with them. Like, okay, I need to talk about this. Okay, let's go. But okay, so and so that's how I figure out what traumatic events are. Right. So, okay, Khalid says he practices this. He's been doing it for 15 years. Awesome. And so for here, then you know what this intervention does for you, and you know the areas like its scope of ability, right? And because you've been using it so much. That's my same experience with EMDR and thought field therapy. Like I have like an understanding of how these work, and I evaluate those. And I think, okay, then I measure, where do I want to go? Where am I now? Is this going to help me get there considering its scope, or what do I need to do to expand the scope of this thing? And so, and that's really for me why I have multiple things, and you likely have multiple strategies as well, that you have pulled in and relied on. And so, and then the answer is, am I getting the results I want in my life? And that when you answer that question, you know what you're doing next. So whether you're just keeping going on, or whether you're like, okay, I need to pull something else in. Usually when we pull something else in, it will make what we're doing richer, you know? Um, like for instance, I only used emotional freedom techniques before, and once I got trained in thought field therapy, oh my gosh, that made my EFT richer. And then I got trained in EMDR, and that like expanded what I was able to do, and how I was able to teach. And then doing the energy medicine has just added even more benefits. And so they make each one of the other interventions just that much richer. So, um, oh, yes, the name of that book, Malia, is The Body Keeps the Score. Brilliant book. It's all about trauma. You know, if I had one regret in my practice, it would be not reading that book earlier. Um, it's brilliant, and it shows you pictures of how the brain functions under, like they take pictures of the brain under fMRI, like functional MRI, whatever. I don't know, all the fancy stuff there, but I know that you get to see how the brain is functioning, where the energy is moving in the brain, where it's lighting up, where it's not, and you get to see what the brain, how it functions under trauma, and how it functions under in a regulated, restful state, unactivated state, undistressed state. There we go. And then you really realize that this trauma thing, you're when you have more traumatic experiences, or where trauma is being activated or distress is being activated, um, you're not even playing from the same kind of brain that somebody else is in a regulated state. And so, you know, the idea there is that if you can get your whole brain to function well together and resolve these issues, you will spend less time in that brain state. And so, and when you're out of that brain state, you have options, you have your values, you have all this stuff. And so that has really, once I read that book and another, and took a couple trainings by another interpersonal neurobiologist that talk about actual brain function and how that applies to healing and wellness and memories and all that stuff, I let go of so many therapeutic practices, and I was just like, not doing that. I'm just not. I don't think they're wrong, but I help people restore brain function. That's what I do, and I help the brain do what the brain wants to do, and I help the brain um, accomplish the undone work that it needs to accomplish to be able to function well. And so get the gunk out so that new energies and new ideas and new function can grow up in there. And so that's really what I do. So that's really how I resolve general anxiety disorder, and how I teach people how to do that as well. So if this is something that you are interested in doing with me, I want you to know I have a link to my program, my 8-week intensive, where we accomplish a ton of stuff, and I help people resolve these things in about 2 to 6 months. Um, and it's intensive. I put you through probably more work than you would get in 2 years. I definitely more work than you would get in 2 years of weekly sessions, using the traditional route. And so, and then not only that, but in the same way, I'm teaching you how to do it yourself and how to take care of yourself. And so, that's available to you. There's two options. One is less intensive, and but we're still working on the same process. And so that's available to you, and that's really for people. I really work best with people who have some level of awareness or a great desire to understand their inner world and to help their inner world function well, and also who know that they want to live life and have ideas about how they want to live life. And if they could just get rid of these dang symptoms, they would be doing it. And that's really what I love. Now, if you're somebody who's just like, I just want to feel better, I get that. That's cool. I think that's a nice goal, and so you're somebody that is welcome to see if this is an interest for you. I think that for me, what's underneath the anxiety, right? What is there? Because that stuff has to be wired in. That stuff has to be really. Um, it's one thing to get rid of symptoms, but I really help people build function and build the function that they want so that they can X, Y, or Z. Show up as an awesome mom. That's it. I like those kind of goals. I want to build, I want to be able to paint. I want to be able to start a business. I want to be able to, if I didn't have these symptoms, I would have the romance of my dreams. I would finally be able to buy that house, right? That's really the space I do the best in. And so if that's you and you can clarify what life would be like for you without this and build in that, like, yeah, holy crap, that I need that. That's really what my invitation to work with me is for, and is to really eliminate symptoms and get you living the life of your dreams, and on that path. And really building where you couldn't before, now you can. Anyway, but you can message me if you're interested in that program, and you can read more about it up there. And that's it. And I don't see any more questions. Oh, who's the author of The Body Keeps the Score? Van Kolk. That's the last name. Van and then Klok. The first name's not coming to me. I should know better. Too funny. Yeah. So I think that's all for me today. Wonderful hanging out, wonderful talking with you, and I hope you can really use this information, use it to inform how you're treating your own generalized anxiety disorder, and really get yourself free. It's a thing. It's really a thing, and it's so powerful, because what could you do with all that time and energy that you're now spending dealing with symptoms? And I think about this, and it's like, um, you know, when I look under the hood of an anxiety disorder, it's really a full-time job. People are really investing at least 40 hours a week on this, you know, on dealing with it, dealing with symptoms, running from symptoms, avoiding symptoms, managing symptoms, recovering from symptoms, um, in the symptoms, and you're not getting paid for that. Like, you're not getting paid for. I mean, imagine the salary you could be getting for running around managing that. Right? I mean, you should be getting paid another like 50 to $100,000 more every year just for going to this full-time job of your anxiety disorder, right? So it's really stuff that you need back. You really do need that time and energy back, and so I hope that this helps you figure out how to do that and to get on track for that. Okay, take care, and talk to you another time.